Hey there, you two. Petey Twofinger here. Good thoughts, good word, good deeds. Today I'm talking about David Gilmour. Arguably, it's a monumental band, Pink Floyd. I mean, it devolves in kind of a mudslinging poop show. If you look at the comment section, you see all this stuff about hate against Roger Waters or pro Gilmour stuff. And I'm going to address a little bit of that, but more than anything else, I'm here kind of focus on David Gilmour and what's available to you as a fan. So he's got an '84 album, and he did a tour with that where there was Betamax video cassette and VHS cassette releases. And that was my first experience checking out David Gilmour live. High quality stuff. That album hits some spectacular heights with this instrumental called Let's Get Metaphysical, perhaps the finest solo guitar instrumental, the finest Pink Floyd instrumental. It's an amazing piece of music. We look at the writing credits. We have Pete Townshend writing in a couple of songs, and it's clear that David Gilmour doesn't trust himself with a pen, which is a shame because when he does write, I really admire his writing style, and I think this is where he let himself down. Now, he had a cocaine addiction thing. Rick Wright suffered that as well. Poor David Gilmour lost his first wife, met this new woman, Polly, and started this family. He clearly is in love with this very powerful woman, Polly, who writes. So he ended up doing another solo album many years later called Rattle That Lock, Girl with the Yellow Lock. I forgot what it's called. That I felt it was garbage. It was rehashed like pseudo Pink Floyd, and then a bunch of weird, like, just throwaway material. And in the middle there was another 2006 release called On an Island, and that is a cohesive, like, almost a concept album, um, and it's the highlight of his career. It's the finest thing David Gilmour ever released under his solo moniker. And it's very much a Pink Floyd album in its essence and feel. But it's so personal. He went with that Polly to this Castellarizo, which is this obscure Greek island with all this myth and beauty. And there's some weird religious stuff going on there, which is interesting. Rick Wright lived in the Greek islands all along. He had a houseboat when he went through his cocaine thing. Roger Waters, way early on, when he was a kid, went there in his 18 to 21 phase and went with his girlfriend and another couple with the sole purpose of ingesting LSD for the first time. And he had some monumental trip where, according to the one video that I've seen, it seemed like what they were saying was he was at peak LSD and they were talking to him, do you want to be famous? And he said yes. And at that point, a beam of light came through the window and shone on his forehead. And he was some kind of cosmic event. Patmos is the Greek island where John the Revelator, in the Bible, you have the last book of the Bible is called Revelation, and it's a bad trip. This book talks of the end of time, the final battle between mankind, Satan, and God. It's a real trip. It's a kind of spectacularly dystopian, bizarre thing in the end of the Bible, and a lot of people think he was tripping when he wrote that. So interestingly enough, Roger Waters chooses to, that's where I'm going. It's just, couldn't get any better. We're here to talk about David Gilmour. That being his finest moment. He did, anytime he does a tour, there's usually a DVD or whatever kind of copy of it. And I remember going to the theater for the simulcast for that release, and now there is a concert, which I'm not sure if it's the same thing that I saw. It's a DVD, which is Live at Albert Hall. I'm guessing it is. Live at the Albert Hall. There's surprise guests. I won't wreck it. But this is, according to the fans, this is the finest, David Gilmour's finest live concert moment. So taking a look, what else? There's Gdansk in Poland, which it was, I saw a few years ago when it came out. I got a copy of it. It's massive and it's incredible. So if you're a fan, you're going to want to get all of this stuff ultimately. But supposedly the best one is Remember That Night. Then we have Gdansk, which I thought he could never top it. Gdansk is so expansive and so perfect and so huge. So you definitely want to keep that in mind and think this is kind of just opinions. There is two different, I'm not sure, are they different? Hammersmith Odeon 84, another disc, 84 disc with different artwork. Live at Robert Wyatt's Meltdown, that looks like it's an acoustic performance with a Sid Barrett Terrapin song. And then we have the Pompeii show, which I haven't seen that yet. I'm looking forward to it. Supposedly, again, the superior one is Remember That Night. Pompeii, I definitely am going to be checking that out. From what I've seen of it, it looks mind-blowingly great, with plenty of moments of Floyd, where the band is doing those tricks. Even on these newer pieces of music, they do stuff it's Pink Floyd. It's the way that the arrangement is, and the way that the keyboards interpolate with the guitars and the sounds and how it builds. Pink Floyd is a type of music that many other bands cannot replicate, where it starts from complete blackness, and that blackness exists. It's there for a while, and then something will start to slowly, barely emerge out of this darkness and form into something else that's swirling, and then other elements begin to sprout forth from this, and this turns into... And they're able to like sculpt the sounds between the players of the bands and know when to come in to build into this improvisational color palette. And turn that into an actual living, breathing piece of music instead of just 1, 2, 3, 4 and coming in with it. They're able to put down a minute and a half of fading in from complete blackness to get to that same point where another band would just start. So then there's other moments where the band is in full swing, and these motifs, or the way that it's arranged, the way that it's performed, the way that it builds, is clearly and unequivocally could be nothing other than Pink Floyd. And I see this in the David Gilmour solo work even more so than what I do in the less subtle live works of Roger Waters at points. Okay? While Roger Waters has more of a very clear connection to the lyrical impact, David Gilmour finds his magical moments rooted in mysticism through the music. So it's two different things, and they both do that, although one does one way better than the other. And hearing that moments in there's magical moments in this music between Rick Wright and David Gilmour's vocals, between the way that the keyboards and the music interpolate. And it's such a shame that Waters was forced out of that picture, and that's the really sad part of it. I think we went through everything that's out there. I do want to point out that a huge part of what makes Remember That Night so special is that it's the final performance for Rick Wright, and it's really good. It's a fantastic live DVD. It's the best live DVD of David Gilmour, supposedly, and also Rick Wright is there. Never mind the special guests, but There's moments with the lighting, like what you first saw on the Pulse tour was they needed so much power. They had to have, there was over, I think it was 120 semis, and they had these diesel generators because they could not plug in all this equipment. It would brown out the power grid. Pink Floyd, and they're in the Guinness Book of World Records for this. So they had to have auxiliary power en masse, which is just insane. And they would do this stuff like there's a song called Sorrow where it's at one point David Gilmour with solo guitar, and the lighting effects are otherworldly. It's the Shekinah glory condensed, this triangular point of light going down to there he is, Gilmour, and it's very powerful. And the magical lighting effects that they're able to summon are, you just don't see that anywhere else. You don't see any other band doing it the way that Pink Floyd does it. Yes, I've seen the same green laser trigger thing all the way back to Deep Purple, House of the Blue Light tour. Perfect Strangers was when I saw that. It's originally Perfect, of course. The album before that, Perfect Strangers, where they do the the green laser. But when Pink Floyd does it, there's 400 times the amount of those lasers, and they're 400 times more powerful. So there's these very special moments of magic that you find in these live performances of David Gilmour, along with the David Gilmour's Pink Floyd. Now, for the bad, I really didn't like how he produced the Syd Barrett stuff, leaving in all these outtakes, trying to paint him as this crazy broken man. What he said when Syd Barrett died really, really stuck in my craw. The fact that he even released Endless River, the low quality, cop out, cash grab, massive tour that he did with Girl with the Yellow Lock, and the ticket pricing. Because the only time I had a chance to see him, it was $300 to $600 a seat. And Waters is coming around 2 times, making sure it's $50 for a nosebleed seat, which anybody can afford that. So then we get to the big kahuna. Why Pink Floyd broke up. David Gilmour went and told Alan Parker, who was making the Wall movie, look, you're fighting with Roger Waters about how this movie's going to be edited? Well, don't worry. When it comes to the final thing, me and Nick Mason, I'm here to tell you, we're going to gang up against Waters and veto his vote and just automatically go with whatever it is you say, blindly without even seeing it. So Nick castrated Roger Waters in the Wall. David Gilmour, he screwed Roger Waters on this movie that was written about his life story, which you just don't do that to another man. And that makes it very clear to me why they were unable to move on, why Roger left the band, and how you forgive a guy. How do you go, okay, man to man, I see that you totally went out of your way to screw me. I'm sorry that you screwed me so unbelievably hard. Can I still be the leader of the band? So I can see why the next album was called Final Cut, because Roger Waters didn't get Final Cut on his own life story. I can see why the imagery on the album has a man with a knife sticking out of his back, which Waters has that suit. He wore it. He'd come to the Wall set after that happened, wearing that. So the Pink Floyd community has devolved into this monkey cage, poop slinging kind of shit show where you got the Gilmour acolytes that paid $600 plus for those tickets, and they're out to make sure they go in every Roger Waters video and call him a tyrant and all this political stuff. Well, regardless of Roger Waters' stance, I admire the fact that he wrote a manifesto, went before the United Nations, and has taken so much of his life to take a stand against the evil that he sees, Regardless, I'm not talking about pro-Palestine, anti-Zionism, any of that. Forget picking a side. I'm just saying I'm proud of him for doing something. Okay? I'm not a anti-Semite or anti-Zionist or pro-Palestine. Nothing. I'm not taking a stand on that. I'm just saying he really went out of his way to do something. People are like, he needs to leave his politics out of it. That guy, that's all he's been doing since Dark Side of the Moon. Okay? So if you buy a ticket for Roger Waters and you go there and you see he doesn't like Trump, you can't like freak out and act like you never knew. It just goes to show that you were never a fan. And if you know, Gilmour's on the opposite end of that whole thing. He's pro-Zionism. So kind of no wonder that they're fighting. And I'm not going to go in a David Gilmour video and say, I'm going to go in there and say, you know what, this is beautiful. And I wish I could have seen the guy. I never was able to see him, minus those 3 Pink Floyd shows or 4 Pink Floyd shows that I saw. So I'm going to get the DVD. And I would recommend you do the same. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds.